Double P Podcast is proud to present
Z, the first podcast you listen to after you watch
Y the Last Man. I'm Bubba. With me, as always, is someone who does a poor job of selling Christianity. It's Catfish. Catfish, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bubba. Listen, I believe the host is appropriate for all animals, especially organ grinder monkeys.
Guys, we're going to be here discussing episode 6 of season 1 of Y the Last Man, Weird Al is Dead.
Hurts. Weird Al, that's really comes home, Bubba, is when we realize we lost Weird Al.
You think that's when it comes home? I think it's terrible that the episode title is a spoiler.
All right, well, we'll have people kind of stumble on and try to live on, even though Weird Al is not living on.
Catfish, what is your rating out of 10 for this episode?
Well, Bubba, I gave this what I like to call 9, what I like to call double E's.
Double E's?
Evasive euphemisms.
Oh.
Well, first we had, quote-unquote, giving the medals. Now we have take them off the board. I love Agent 355. Wow. You know what? Agent 355 continues to be the most well-drawn, amazingly performed character on this show. Now we're starting to see there's some chinks in her armor. You know, she's having some issues. She's still trying to hold it all together. I mean, for me, I would think simply having to deal with Yorick constantly abandoning her when she's the one protecting his life. You know, the fact that she's able to hold on in the face of that is amazing. We had a lot of excitement tonight. We've got whatever is going on with Roxanne. We had the first mention of the Amazons tonight, which is a big thing that was in the comic books.
Yeah.
We have got Regina Oliver, just so good. So good. You know what they need to do? They need to give her a mustache so she can twist it. So delicious. She is awesome. We've got a lot of balls up in the air. I wonder, though, how you feel because, you know, last week you said, okay, there's a lot going on, but I feel like, we're still kind of getting background. It doesn't feel like it's building. And we got a lot more story pieces tonight. So, Bubba, forget how I feel.
I always do.
I know that's absolutely true. What was your rating for tonight's episode?
Well, Catfish, I'm not as high as you. Never. What's going on here? I am only going to give this 8, what I like to call quadruple B's out of 10.
Oh, well, quadruple B's, that must mean it's worth 16. Go ahead. Wait, hold on. What? Quadruple B?
Yes, well, it is okay, I assume, to say this in such company. But that's 8 Bare Bath Brainwashes out of 10.
One of us.
Oh, man.
One of us.
So it's my same rating as last week, but last week I was like, when are we going to start cooking with gas? And this episode feels like it wants to. It turns those burners on, and then it turns them off a little bit. Turns them on and turns them off. I want the burners full going. I want this show to cook. There is so much, when we break down this episode, there's so much I'm going to love and go, oh, hell yeah. But why am I not 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10? There's this kind of odd thing about, like, you know that this is about to blow. You see what's happening. Hell, Mackenzie and I are both looking around and going, this price max is messed up. But it doesn't take it hasn't gone the full Mackenzie yet. I need Mackenzie going crazy. I need everything going crazy. I love where these signposts are going. But it feels like it's holding back a little bit, like it's afraid to let the tea kettle overflow, the boiling kettle, blow the whistle. And so 8 out of 10. Woo, I'm excited, but I just want to go there. I see where it's going, and I'm like, let's go. I'm on this train. Let's roll.
Well, I mean, I kind of understand you a little bit because for me, I just assume you probably know this. I don't know this. This to me feels like we've got enough plates up in the air for like 13 episodes, 16 episodes, but I assume like everything else that this is the first season is a 10 episode season.
Might even be 8, Kevin.
No, sirree. It's not happening.
Well, listeners, we love to say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think.
Yep.
We want you to write to us on our social media presence. That's at Double PHQ.
Right.
The word double, the single letter P for podcast, HQ for headquarters, at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram. If you're still on Facebook after that 60 Minutes report, find us on Facebook at facebook.com/WPHQ.
How about the outage? Maybe Facebook won't even be fully back up by the time this podcast is out.
I think Roxanne took it down. She didn't want any competition for brainwashing.
I don't want to spoil anything, but Roxanne could be behind a lot of stuff.
Oh, I love it so much. So write us and let us know what you think. We have been adding feedback right here at the top because, once again, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. And we had a great friend of ours, a person we like to call a double L.
Double L?
A loyal listener.
That
Hamlet is Dead reached out. Now, Hamlet is Dead is behind us. So this feedback was only for the first 3 episodes of Why the Last Man. But Catfish, what did Hamlet say?
Hamlet says, I love the show. It is tense. I agree with Catfish, though, that this power grab theme is a little too close to reality, and I have PTSD.
Oh, no.
Your podcast makes the show much better, though. Actually, listen first and then watch. So don't bother saying spoiler alert for Hamlet is Dead. It's all spoiler alert.
All spoiler alert. Thank you so much for that feedback. Once again, listeners, you can shout us out at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram. We also got this bit of feedback from GG. Who, this one's tough to read, but because we want to read all your feedback, we want to encourage you guys to keep sending it in. Huh. I'm going to say it. So GG wrote, shouldn't have went woke. I'm not watching another episode of Why. So this is something I don't feel at all. GG, for various reasons, believes the show went woke. I don't see it. I can't, GG, I don't want to dismiss your thoughts. I'm just not seeing that at all. And I would encourage anybody who has these thoughts to keep watching. That's my opinion. What is your opinion, Catfish?
Well, I just wonder if GG was someone who read the original comics, because all the themes that are kind of going on here were in the original comics. So I don't know whether this show is, I think what's kind of come more to the fore in the show than was in the comics was talk more about members of the trans community. I don't think that's particularly woke, but all these issues were in the comic book. I'm not feeling that. I feel like, you did read some feedback from people before the show thinking it was going to be like woke, and I'm not getting that from it. But
do you think in any way that people are like, well, Yorick was the last man, and by introducing Sam and other members of the trans community, that there's somehow, I'm trying to reach out on this. I don't agree with it, but it's somehow like, well, by giving other men, and maybe that diminishes Yorick's importance somehow, and they love Yorick as character. I'm reaching at straws.
Well, I mean, the whole thing about, that's kind of expanded to the wider world here, and that only Dr. Mann brought up, and it was, something that I hadn't thought about too much in the first few episodes was, this isn't just a human problem. This is a biodiversity problem. I mean, we're talking about, losing all animals on the earth, except for ones that reproduce asexually. We're talking about foodstuffs. We're talking about, life as we know it. So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah. And so listeners, if we love everybody's feedback. Once again, we say, who cares what we think? We want to know what you think. And so the one thing we wouldn't say is we want to encourage anybody to quit watching this show. We want you to keep engaging with it like we are, celebrating it if you enjoy it so much like we do. So please continue.
I mean, it's a very, very fascinating show. It's a very entertaining show. I mean, except for what Hamlet is Dead and I are experiencing in the real world implications of it. I think this show is, for being a show in the first season, I think it's firing on all cylinders.
Heck yeah. All right, Catfish, we got more feedback. What's the next one?
All right, the next one is from Sweet Gav. Sweet Gav says, so Eli and Peyton Manning walk into a bar to watch Tom Brady win another Super Bowl. Hello. Bubba, can you tell me what this has to do with Why the Last Man?
Catfish, are you forgetting last week's tuna fish sandwich joke about walking into a bar?
No, I'm not forgetting it at all, but I don't understand.
Well, it's apparently Sweet Gap wanted to tell his own version of, hey, these people walk into a bar.
Is he implying that one of them is a tuna fish sandwich?
Which one would, Eli or Peyton Manning?
Oh, my goodness. All right, well, hey, thanks, Sweet Gav, for sharing your own walk into a bar joke. Props, because I'm sure there are a lot of walk into a bar jokes out there, and this is certainly one of them.
We got more feedback from the executive producer of Why the Last Man. Mm-hmm. We call her the showrunner, as does everyone else, because I assume that's her title. Eliza Clark, what did she say, Catfish?
She said, okay, first of all, it is me.
Huh.
Yeah. And then second of all, yes, I am listening while exercising. Hashtag personal assistant is me.
Man, Catfish, that also calls back to last week's podcast. I can't believe you doubted it.
Now, hold on a second here. I got in so much trouble for this. You started the bit, and like a good person, I yes-anded it, and all of a sudden I got in trouble for it. That's now, one thing I did say was, all I hoped was that she was listening at a good speed. 1.1 is okay. 1.2, is starting to get a little on the edge. 1.5. I mean, my voice is already a little too high, Bubba. I don't know. But what did she say? She said, I listen at the very appropriate listening speed of exactly how the podcast is meant to be listened to. The actual speed of your actual voices. I can only assume that her anger at us fuels her to go longer in the exercising.
Well, here we go, Eliza Clark. It's very intelligent, but she says the speed that the podcast is meant to be listened to. I can't listen to myself at one time speed. I think I sound drunk. I'm like, what's going on here? And also, since this is at the Eliza Clark and not her personal assistant, this has proven one thing.
What is that?
She needs a new personal assistant. I'm applying for the job. I hate my work. I'm coming to Toronto where they filmed the show, and I'm going to be her personal assistant. She doesn't have to listen to these terrible podcasts. I'll do it for her. Yeah.
But you already live in Atlanta, which is, as I said, and I'm always right, where the show is filmed.
Okay. Thank you so much for all your feedback, listeners. Once again, we encourage you to go ahead. If you're on YouTube, leave those comments below at the bottom at PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/PHQ.
And as we always say, if you leave a comment on YouTube, if you comment to us or leave us a reply, if you retweet one of our announcements about the podcast, you will be put into a jar at the end of the season, and you will win some Why the Last Man associated prize. We don't know what that's going to be yet. I might dig up one of my old copies of Why the Last Man and send you original. I think I started about 11 issues in, so you might get the original number 11 of Why the Last Man.
That's pretty good. I just bought the bound. What do you call them? The bound version.
Yeah, quality paperback.
Right. Okay. Catfish, we are going to break down this episode 6. Weird Al is dead. But there is one thing I thought I wanted to talk to right up at the top.
Tell me.
And that is that Hulu, all these streaming services do this differently. When do you think an announcement is going to be made about Season 2? It feels like about this time, meaning Episode 6 had aired, that Hulu announced that their Only Murders in the Building, the show we're also podcasting about, would have a second season. When do you think this show is going to get a second season? I want to mention, I'm throwing a question out at you and listeners, and I'm not prepared for it. So there are, in streaming media, there's really almost no ways. There's no such thing as Nielsen ratings, and even Nielsen ratings in the old analog TV days were never 100% correct. They were always, you were trusting people to fill in these diaries and such. So I did a little bit of digging. Now, The Hollywood Reporter...
But FX knows. Hulu knows.
FX and Hulu exactly know how many people are watching. That's exactly
They know
right.
down to the minute. They know how many people started it. They know how many people watched up to 5 minutes, how many people watched up to 10 minutes. They know all that.
Yeah. Now, The Hollywood Reporter has something they call streaming charts where they are reaching out to, let me see who is putting this together for them. I guess it is Nielsen. So Nielsen's trying to come up with streaming.
They're trying to stay relevant, Bubba.
Right. Now, in the Hollywood Reporter listing... it's very odd because in the streaming world, they're not watching, for example, episode 6. They could be watching episode 1 through 6 and stuff. And so on the most recent list, which might not even include Why the Last Man because it's only been out 3 weeks, Why the Last Man didn't make the top 10 in original series, or they also list acquired series. So, for example, a TV show named Manifest originally aired, I believe, on NBC, and now it's on Netflix. So it's currently the number 1 streaming acquired series, and whatever that means. So Why the Last Man didn't make any of these lists, I don't know. These lists come in late. But then there's this group called Just Watch, which claim they have a list of the most popular TV shows and movies streaming in Canada. And they have Y the Last Man as number 2 on their top 10 list in Canada behind Apple TV's Ted Lasso. All of this to say is, I think we're fans. We want this show to get a second season. But what is going on? What do you think? What do you think about this whole streaming world, and if and when we're going to get that season 2 renewal?
Well, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, that in the streaming world and anything other than broadcast television, they do usually like to announce the second season before the end of the first season. You know, in the old days, it would be like, all right, well, not the old days, even now,
right?
You know, the broadcast networks are like, all right, well, we're going to give you the information, you know, about a month before we start shooting it, and we're going to get the writers' room together, the whole thing. So now it's right around the time I think they would do it. Don't you think they're going to do it before the end of the first season?
I think they are. I hope Eliza Clark, while she's listening to our podcast and running there on the treadmill, is breaking down season 2 into the next.
No, hopefully she's getting a buzz on her phone. She's like, I'm going to stop listening to these morons because look, I just got notification. We're being renewed.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say she got a buzz on her phone from LinkedIn. Hey, Bubba wants to be my personal assistant. This is great. No, that's exactly.
Don't make it creepy.
Listen, I just want to hate my work so much. You know, listeners, top secret. I actually work in television. I walked out of my position entirely. Okay, anyway, you know what? Enough is enough. We're getting in deep trouble here.
I'm glad that you make it sound like that's something that's going to happen in the future rather than something that you've already done.
All right, well, listeners, write to us and tell us what you want for season 2 of Y the Last Man. Hey, Catfish, we have 3 storylines.
Yeah.
The 3 areas of focus, I should say. They're kind of multiple characters with each unique desires and issues and wants and needs. But what I call the 3 focuses are like the 3 kind of story focuses of the team of 3, Yorick, 355, and Dr. Mann, on the road being hunted in this episode. We have the group there at the Price Max underneath Roxanne's new tyrannical control, and we have the political machinations in D.C. Who cares what we're going to talk about first? Of the 3 areas, which is your favorite area when it cuts to D.C., when it cuts to Price Max, when it cuts to Agent 355 in York? Which one are you most excited to be like, oh, yeah, I want to go back here and see what they're doing?
All right. For the moment, I'm still most interested in the main story because in the main story with our 3, simply because this is they're doing a good job having us focus on other things, but because you know I have a history in the comics, to me I'm still really want to know why this happened. Now, of course, we're not going to find that out for a long time, but that's the one right now I'm still interested in. But I have to say that I think the most captivating storyline was the storyline with Roxanne, because that is going in some wild places.
That is so fascinating you say that, because once again, that's the story when I really think, ooh, they turn the burner up and then they kind of turn it down, and they turn the burner up and turn it down. What for me is the most fascinating, and it's, you know, I asked you to re-review the comic so you would be familiar with it. I didn't want to, so it would feel more fresh and I would forget storylines. For me, the most fresh story, which they really are slow turning that burner, but I'm like, that's the one I'm fascinated with, is DC, the politics. Mainly because my girl, Regina Oliver, is flat up crazy.
So good.
She's flat up nuts. She's flat up, like I see her and I go, oh no, oh no. It's so funny. Before I was talking about, I thought Nora was going to break, and I'm like, oh no, when's she going to break? When Regina Oliver's on screen, I think, oh no, when am I going to break? When is she going to break me? Oh man. So, well, okay, that's our feelings. Which one do you want to talk about first?
All right, well, so let's start with the political machinations first.
Once again, this is my favorite. But it is one that it appeared in the episode, I would say, the least amount of time. I believe it had a couple episodes off, actually, where we would focus on hero story rather than go to DC.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we had the DC storyline last week where I was like, well, why isn't everybody just going, okay, you're higher up, so you should be president. Like, there's no one acknowledging the usurping. I mean, Hero was the story we missed last week, but this was the storyline that I felt like the gas got turned up super high tonight.
Okay, well, we begin with
Let's begin.
The two most sane, level-headed members of Washington.
Absolutely.
Of Kimberly, the former president's daughter, and Regina Oliver, the current president. They're in the memorial wing. They're looking at pictures. Regina is talking about, was she never married? She said this great line. She said, "Never could find a guy who could take this heat." Heck yeah, Regina.
You know what I love about her, too, is as funny as the thing I was talking about, I don't know if it was last week's episode or the week before, was about, my thought that, like, if most of the guys were gone and it was just women, this would be a calmer world. And you know who agrees with me? Sure. Regina Oliver's mom. Okay. Because Regina Oliver's mom said if only women in charge, there'd be peace. And then Regina says, of course, she was a Democrat. Ooh. That is a great line. Ouch. As we all know, we are famous and out there lefties, but Regina, Bubba, what? Kimberly, I thought, she's going to be an okay villain. Right, I thought she was going to be an okay villain. Oh, man. Oh, shoot. Oh, Regina is the villain we needed. She is so good. She's so strong. She's so powerful. I don't want to jump to the end, but like when she is wearing her power red and she is like snapping things off. I'm like you. If she looked at me and just started, I would just break. I'd tell her everything. Yeah, my son. They were looking for my son. He's out there. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, now I feel I have to stand up for Kimberly, who I think is doing it a different way. Maybe a bit. We always refer to the show that started our podcast career, Game of Thrones. Maybe she's got a little bit of Littlefinger in her. Because when Regina mentions that her mom was a Democrat, what did Kim do? She scoffed quietly. I don't want to scoff loudly. And scoff quietly is how the closed captioning described it. She gave a near silent scoff. So,
I love it.
So I love it. And so, I mean, Regina, though, does get all the best lines. She says something that maybe a lot of people think is true. She says feminism only applies to liberals, Kim. Regina's dropping a bit of truth. Kim comes back, Kim snaps back. She's stepping up to the plate. She's like, sometimes I think these people, like President Brown, sometimes I think they're relieved that all the men are dead. Woo! Now, Regina, also so good. She calls the group that's keeping President Brown in power the Establishment Authority. Ooh, she's against the establishment, like all good Americans. She also said President Brown has got tragedy on her side. She seems invincible.
Now that was the one line that was the one line I didn't understand. She has tragedy on her side. Maybe you can explain to me. But we were sitting there right next to each other. Everyone has experienced this tragedy. I mean, for Christ's sake, Kimberly lost her two children, her two small boys. She should have.
I thought she had 3 boys, but
okay. Well, then
she lost 4 boys.
Listen, Bubba, does it matter how many there were?
Right.
They're all gone now.
Okay.
All right. But so she lost her boy. So I don't understand why. Explain to me why.
Perhaps Regina Oliver, because she didn't get married, and therefore I think as a viewer, we're supposed to assume she didn't have children, where President Brown did lose a husband and a son. Like maybe President Brown split with her now deceased husband was a secret. Remember, he was like, I did this so people want to know.
Right.
And so maybe Regina thinks, hey, President Brown lost a husband and a son, so people see her a bit more sympathetic than they would see me as someone who wasn't married to a man. And wasn't.
I mean, I'm going to assume that that's going to be it, but I would think that, everyone has experienced tragedy, so they're not going to go, oh, I feel bad for her. It's like, everybody lost somebody except for Regina Oliver, who needs nobody, not even Kim. Kim, she stiff-armed Kim so good last episode. She stiff-armed people left and right. Look.
Yeah.
The other thing about Regina Oliver is she always has the receipts. She knows what every person has said about her in any public setting.
She's ready.
So good. She pulls it out. Oh, you called me.
Right. Nut job on the view. Right. It's perfect. Now, once again, I keep mentioning these burners that I just want the burners stirred all the way up to 10 going. How long is it going to take for the show to just give us the double C?
Double C.
Christine cracking. You know Christine, who knows about Yorick, is going to crack sooner or later and tell Kimberly, and Kimberly will tell Regina. You know, I joked at the top about how you tried to sell Christianity about as well as Kimberly did to Christine. You know, Kimberly saying, you consider letting me raise your baby. Ooh, read the room, Kim. I mean, whoa.
That's part of the understanding that Christians have.
But read the room, Kim. Uh-huh. But you know, let's talk brass tacks here. Christine is going to crack.
Well, Christine is going to crack, but I feel like Kimberly is doing this pretty sly. I feel like she hasn't really put any pressure on her yet. In fact, when she pulled her aside tonight, you know, because she said to Regina, like, oh, essentially she's like, well, I'll get you some I can get you some information. I'm your gal. I'll dig around for you. And then so when she pulled Christine aside, I thought she was going to do that, but she didn't.
Right, that's a good point.
She did something that was probably not likely to get Christine on her side, but I felt that this was appropriately turned up tonight. I feel like the outing of the Yorick secret is like end of season 1. This would have been too fast tonight. They give it a tease tonight,
without
for sure.
question. But that the truth coming out is going to be a firecracker that is going to set off. You know, it's the match that you can't put out. It is the firecracker that is going off that sets off other firecrackers. So I just know how fun that's going to be. I'm ready for it.
Well, it's too early. Give them some time.
All right. Okay.
Damn it! Don't make them run through all their plot in the first season.
You know, hey, Breaking Bad would set off those firecrackers. Come on, not later seasons about Breaking Bad where they want to do this slow roll too. But I mean, let's set off some. Let us off some.
Look,
cherry bombs.
as soon as this Yorick thing comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a huge powder keg.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be the fight that's outside the walls is going to be inside the walls, and people are going to take sides, and people who aren't presently allies might end up being allies because of the shockingness of this revelation. Okay, so it's going to cause a huge schism. I think you need to pump the brakes, Bubba.
There are no brakes on this car.
God, pump those brakes.
The final thing we should talk about here in DC is that under the orders of General Reed, those trackers are looking for 355. Regina and President Brown are there getting briefed about what's going down, and President Brown, and Christine's there too, but President Brown has to, she has to play this sly, she has to play it smooth, she has to...
And let's just admit it.
Yeah.
I said this last week where I understood that she's not quite ready for this. Who would be? She does not completely have a poker face during this thing. And I want to slightly correct you on something you said.
What do you mean?
Because you said Regina and President Brown are being briefed. No, Regina's being briefed, and then President Brown walks into the room and is like, what's going on? I'm being briefed. Oh, okay, I'll sit in too.
Oh, how nice. Sharing is caring.
Regina is in her power red.
One line that I got to give it up to President Brown about, hey, she says to Regina, you're here now. Be useful. Oh, snap.
Oh, yeah.
Now, but
she's going to be useful.
She's going to get to work. Now, Regina snaps back. It's like, hey, there are people outside. There are riders at the gates. We need, what'd she say? Riot gear. We need tactical tanks. Like, she wants to protect the Pentagon, protect the house. Who's right? Who's right? Is President Brown right about, hey, let's not go crack skulls of the protesters? Or is Regina right, meaning we need order above all else?
Well, this is clever because, again, we saw this like in the first episode or the second episode, but you forget about it because we're following personal stories.
Yeah.
So it's smart to because we see Regina's got different ideas, but also to think like, holy cow, there's still 1,000 people out there trying to break down. What the heck? This is craziness over here.
Well, who's right though? Which would you side with?
I again would side with the person who's deciding not to attack Americans on American soil.
So
that would be the usurper, President Brown.
Oh, okay.
Usurper, President Brown. I'm on usurper, President Brown's side. I just can't believe I'm on the side of a usurper.
It's written all over your face. So that's it for DC. It's so interesting. We have different takes. Once again, listeners, We want your feedback. We live for your feedback at Double PHQ. Where do you want to go next?
Well, and just to buttress that point, people, please, like Hamlet is dead, please write in and say that you agree with me.
Okay. There go all our listeners. So, hey, where do you want to go next?
All right, well, let's go to our double T's.
Double T's?
Yeah, troublesome threesome.
Oh, okay. Was that what...
yeah.
Was that with Sam?
No.
That girl, Kelsey? Oh, okay. Sorry. No. You mean our good friends, Yorick, Agent 355, and Dr. Mann.
Heck yes.
All right. So, I believe the very first shot of the episode is this motorcycle team driving. And I immediately thought, well, wait, is that Yorick, Dr. Mann, and 355 on
and
motorcycles?
I didn't think it was them.
Why
Number
not?
one, because they didn't have the basket for ampersand.
That's number one.
Number two, they were all dressed excellently. And these three guys, they're hit the road. They forgot to pack their matching leathers.
Oh, man. Way to go, Dr. Mann. So we find out a group is looking for 355. We cut to our heroes, Agent 355, Yorick, and Dr. Mann. Yorick is taking care, has nature calling him, and we have this odd discussion between Dr. Mann and 355, where Dr. Mann questions, do you think he masturbates? And he should. What do you do we even want to go there? But Agent 355 doesn't want to answer that. She says, we've got to go 20 more miles.
Well, this is an interesting thing because, we first had this 355 and Yorick were having this they were having a real head buddy relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And then 355 has shown a little bit of softness, but what's really happened is Yorick is starting to be a little bit more understanding. That doesn't mean that he's going to listen to her or that he won't abandon her again at the first sight of any trouble or questioning. But Dr. Mann is saying, you talk to him about it because you're good friends. I would be like, listen, you're the one that got drunk with him. You guys are drinking buddies. You talk to him, Dr. Mann. I love it because Dr. Mann is just like, Dr. Mann, like me, alas, Dr. Mann, I knew her well. # no filter. No filter.
No, dear God, no. Now, Yorick... I go online, Catfish, to just see what the general pulse is. Besides your wonderful feedback listeners, I go online to see what the general pulse is. And what's interesting is that people enjoy this show. There's positive reviews, there are positive social media tweets out there. But even the positive tweets have questions about Yorick and Hero being, quote unquote, the worst. Yorick walks away again. He's always going off on his own. And how are you going to allow the viewers to not be driven crazy by this? But it was a cool scene. He is drawn by these people singing. Yeah. Radiohead, they're singing Come Police. And it's a great scene. And that's where we get the episode title, Rest in Peace, Weird Al, is almost generated there. And what did you think about this? 355 even says, hey, this is a good find, Yorick. Is she just saying that because she doesn't want to butt heads with him again? Or is she kind of touched by this ceremony that's happening there in this town?
Well, I think she's touched by it, too. I mean, it is nice to see after all the craziness that's going on and all the fighting and the looting and groups of people against each other that this one group has kind of come together to do this really cool thing. Yeah. And the other thing that this kind of sets up is I didn't think about it, is, we in the comics, and I think this is smart because they brought more of the trans element into the show than in the comics. In the comics, whenever Yorick is unmasked, people are always like, man, oh my God, it's a man. Right. And of course, because they are showing more of the trans community in this show, it makes sense that everyone will assume that all the male animals died, all the male humans died, all the male animals died, that if we're seeing someone who looks like a man, that they're actually a member of the trans community. Right. So the funny thing is, it's actually a lot safer for him in the show to unmask than it was the way things were set up in the comics. It's still a bad idea and reckless of him to do it.
Mask on all the time.
Yeah, I agree. Well, all I said was, you know what? I know that we've lost a lot of electronics. Yep. We lost a lot of power. There's probably not running water. No. You know what you can find? What? Disposable razors. Shave that thing off, Yorick. For God's sakes, shave it off.
Okay, so they go in, but who shows up? That evil hunting gang for 355. So our heroes duck into a church.
And that's when we find out that it's for 355, because at first we assumed it's somebody after Yorick.
Oh, right, yes. Look, have you seen this person? They're holding up a picture of 355. How'd they get the picture?
There's 355. Well, presumably, since they were sent by the government had a picture of her from the file that they were able to reproduce, and they gave it to her, and they sent these people off on their motorcycles.
Now, hold on.
Yep.
You agree that 355 is always the best, right?
Absolutely.
Well, in the same spirit in which 355 said, I don't kill people, I also want to say, I think you're a great podcaster. Oh, I don't kill people. The falling helicopter, the exploding helicopter kills people.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing that I do remember from the comic, I do love from the comic, is references. We want to know they are in our world, so we're getting, hey, this is Home Alone. This isn't Home Alone. It's Waco. Love that for me. Sorry to cut you off, but I had to say it. That's the kind of stuff I just enjoyed in the comic. I love seeing it here.
Love it. Love it.
355 is sleepwalking again. Rut-row.
Oh, she's probably having one of those awesome dreams, though, where she's doing some more torch singing.
So that makes it okay. Catfish, like Yorick, you do have an expressive face.
Yeah.
Because he's giving things away when he's having these debates with Dr. Mann about, hey, should I leave? Should I stay? I mean, there was a weird line there where Dr. Mann was like,
well, this is the way they explained them leaving this time, was that Dr. Mann was like, hey, they're not looking for you. They're looking for her. So we're not safe with her.
Right.
Now, Dr. Mann hasn't been around that long, but she's smart. She knows that the other people who won that prize that she won were either idiots or morons or whatever. She should know that they're safer with 355.
Yeah, I was about to say, Catfish, I'm about to put a Post-it note on her name, because she gets Yorick to leave. What if they gone 50 feet when she stumbles, cuts herself, then says, well, maybe I made the wrong decision. It's time to Post-it note her and say, terrible decision, Dr. Mann.
Well, first of all, Yorick was defending 355, but not strong enough. He needs to say to Dr. Mann, listen, we're not safe. Look at us two bumbling idiots. We can't protect ourselves. This is the Wild West out here.
Exactly. I'm with you. And so we get the Wild West. Dr. Mann, to give her a little bit of credit, she does help 355 out of a jam when these three soldiers attack. She butts one on the head. And Yorick, to give him a bit of credit, he is somehow able to pull his real quick disappearing acts of, cause a distraction. When the person turns around in an instant, you're already gone. I do like that. But it's a bit of a mess. So
now, one thing that we find out while this is happening, which dovetailed with the other story, so we already talked about a little bit, was the really cool turn of, these are people sent by the government to try to help, to try to track them down. I assumed that it was somebody not from the president, not from the government, or not that their end goal wasn't, let's find, they assume 355 is bad, I guess, at this point. But I didn't think they were from the government.
No, it's a wonderful bit of tension, a good bit of fighting, great bit of action. Once again, to allow Dr. Mann to help Yorick have a decision where I think we need to debate, Catfish. Who's right here at the very end? Yorick, who's like, let's not kill her. So Yorick lies and said, hey, this person never saw me, a.k.a. don't kill this person, 355. Or is he wrong and he should allow 355 to clean up this mess and take care of this eyewitness? Who's right in your opinion?
Wait, did you say that one of the people that I have to decide, that between the two people I have to decide to write, one of them is Yorick and one of them is 355?
Yes. Terrible. So you just want to give out medals to everybody. Why not let this soldier live? It's an American soldier doing a job that they were assigned to. It's nothing personal.
She just needed to be taken care of. No medal necessary, just taken care of. This is bad.
There's been
we
enough
know
death.
This is
enough death.
You know that this is if Christine doesn't give. Personally, I don't think Christine is going to give. I think this is what's going to give it away. This is what he's going to finally do what he hasn't been able to do through his entire shiftless, lazy life, and that is finally cause trouble for his mom, who he hates so much.
Oh,
and now he's going to get her back. He's going to get her back.
Listeners, yes. I am not silently scoffing. I'm loudly scoffing at what I have to listen to every week. Okay, hey, so that's it. That's our group.
Wow.
They've left another big problem for themselves. Oh, my goodness.
Holy cow. It's crackling. It's crackling. Every storyline is crackling, but none had more twists and turns tonight than what I like to call the double R's.
Double R's?
Roxanne's roughnecks. They are ready to take care of business. Holy cow.
What is great is we have so many characters in this particular storyline that it goes in all directions. So Roxanne, a couple episodes ago, we met her. She did provide a bit of menace, but she was also like, hey, these are our guests. We have to help them. And we jump right in. I'm not sure this is, I can't imagine a woman's group that is trying to help people who've been abused. But I'm not sure Roxanne's tough love is the best. She is trying to get people to name all the times in their lives, and it's tragic to think of how many times this could be, but how many times in these women's lives they've had a terrible experience from a man. It is tough to watch.
Well, not only that, I mean, we're kind of going to the end of it, but
no, I'm saying that's the first scene.
But the end of the scene. I mean, the stuff that you sit there and watch it as a dude, and you're like, whoa, this is rough and over the top. And then, as she's asking Mackenzie.
Oh, yeah, poor Mackenzie.
What did your relatives say? What did your dad say? Your grandfather,
walk through the door.
Your uncle. And I start thinking like, okay, well, what do you say to kids? But it's true. You don't say to I guess you might say to a young boy you're growing with a handsome young man. But, there are things that get said to girls that don't get said to guys that are more about their looks and less about what's going on in their lives. So, while it is, Roxanne's building an army. Roxanne's roughnecks, a.k.a. the Amazons.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, Nora's got to play her cards really smart here. And I think when we first see her, she's playing them, I think, like a lot of people at home would play them. This is my child. She doesn't need to hear this.
Right.
And I would almost wonder if that's also Nora being a bit I don't want to hear this cockadoodle craziness. We've all experienced a terrible trauma. Let's support each other in a way that it doesn't, not through anger, I guess, is Nora's thought. What did you think about how Nora handled this beginning part? Now, why don't we talk all about Nora? Nora, there's the code red at Price Max, where it's strangers are coming. Nora, get your gun, do your role that we're supposed to do. Nora is seeing Roxanne's group but surround 4 people who are desperate with guns, including a small kid, and say, hit the road. No room at the inn.
Yeah. It's brutal. I mean, I feel like Nora's kind of been put in kind of an impossible position here by Roxanne, because she stands up to Roxanne at the beginning of their storyline,
right.
And Roxanne is not like that at all. And other people other people tell Nora, you shouldn't be doing that. And then after Nora sees that, Roxanne, not the most giving or generous person, and maybe she should shut her yap and go along with it, she comes to apologize, and then Roxanne's like, no, now you're being a mewling baby. So with Roxanne, you got to do a very tough line. You got to. It's a very tough road to navigate. You can't talk back to her, but also you can't be weak.
No.
So follow exactly what she says, but don't do it in a spineless way.
Man, don't show up with tea. Maybe if she had brought a 6-pack. Here you go, Roxanne. Chill out.
I mean, Nora is in a tough spot. And so is Nora's daughter, Mackenzie's mother, Nora.
Oh, awesome callback there to some of our past podcasts, everybody. So Mackenzie, To me, Mackenzie should apply to be on a remake of The Office because she's doing some great eye work about, Mom, what are you doing here? You're joining in this rebirth process of the girl is dunked into the dirt and you think she's going to be held under, but no, the funeral is goodbye, Laura. Hello, Athena.
Whoa, Athena. And that is one of the first hints we get about that gives us the flavor of the Amazons.
Oh, yeah.
And the next thing we hear is from Roxanne. Roxanne takes off her shirt.
Oh, yeah. With Nora.
She's had a mastectomy.
Okay.
And Roxanne talks about, the Amazons. Used to cut off one breast. And now, Bubba, and she says to show strength. I thought they said in the comic, or at least I read somewhere else, it was also for their shooting of arrows.
Oh, okay.
That you remove one breast so that you would it wouldn't get in your way while shooting arrows. So either way, way to turn a negative into a positive. I am now an Amazon, and I will cut you down, sucker.
Dang. Now, I'm not a brood, but are you a bit shocked about that there is such type of content you wouldn't normally see if this was airing on the FX cable channel here in the United States?
Well, the funny thing is that in shows where you see nudity, it's like a kind of male gaze nudity. So if you're going to get some, they're probably going to throw it in there so you get some salacious all the way through. But I feel like we didn't have it till tonight. So when it came, it was shocking because you were like, I was like, wait, can they show that?
Disney Plus, everybody.
Disney Plus. Hulu. So, that's not the first time that we saw nudity in this episode.
They had Yorick nude, I think, in the dry cleaner. Was that the second episode?
Right, but in this episode, we had the one of us moment. So we might as well talk about Hero's journey in this episode.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so Hero,
yeah.
Before we could break down her journey, any more positive thoughts on Hero? To me, admittedly, it gets to the end of her story, but at least at the end of her story, she's come clean to somebody about that incident that happened in the first episode, and that's what she really needed to do. She needed to get it out there, and that's the only way she's going to be able to get past it. Right.
I just feel like, it's that kind of thing where, different things when people are going through things, when people, are having addiction problems or something like that, different techniques work for different people. And I feel like Hero mentions earlier when she's in the bath, like to the ladies, when they start giving her their psychobabble, they're like, we feel like you're in pain or whatever. She's like, hey, I've been through this several times, but feel like she might have a breakthrough here. Unfortunate that Roxanne is the one who's going to guide her into her next phase of emotional maturity, shall we say?
Okay.
Who knows what that will be? But yeah, we start off
with Hero. Well, at the beginning with Hero, she and Sam are kind of removed from the session that Roxanne is having, and Hero's happy. She describes this location they're in as a gold mine. AKA, I don't have to go to D.C. and deal with the issues I have with my mother. And
right, all the free meds I need.
Right, Sam, hey, you need some stuff. Here's some stuff you need, Sam. She's pitching it as, we have found our place in the new world.
Yeah.
And then, the next time we see her, I believe, is that bath. What did you think of the stare down? Because it's really, forget titillation. It's not titillation. No. It is a... One of us.
The way they kind of...
It's the hard sell.
They work in concert with each other. It is almost like they plan this, and it is creepy. It could have been really nice. It could have been like, hey, open up to us. It's everyone's had a tough time. No, it is creepy cult programming.
Now, a couple of the lines they say, one of them says... We get the feeling you don't like yourself very much. Ooh.
That is right out of that. Whoa, they're just going there.
Right. And then another one mentions, and I thought this was a brilliant line, this member mentions, all of the people who ruined my life and made me feel small are gone. Hello. Welcome to the new world.
And so I think, that, as heroes start to realize, like, okay. And she's like, well, we may be leaving. And she might think, all right, let's get out of here.
Right.
Just because, first of all, let's admit, two things. One,
Okay.
these people are part of a creepy cult, no matter what anyone says, but also that Hero, based on her life and based on the relationship she's had, doesn't like getting close with anybody. So it seems to me like if it had gone the way it seemed like it was going to go, she would have bugged out of here too, no matter how unsafe it was.
Okay.
But now she's opened up to Roxanne, and she's like, Roxanne, did you kill a dude? And Roxanne's like, because Hero says, it doesn't feel like you should be able to kill someone and get away with it. And Roxanne's like, well, sounds like you did.
Yeah, Roxanne watched the previously on, so she was like, hey, that's good. She also has a great line, you kick an animal enough, it's going to bite back, a.k.a., sure, you killed somebody. Big whoop. It's nature. Let's go, Hero.
Right. Now, what's interesting, though, is that they're definitely focusing on, with the sessions, with everything else, that, that they were right to fight back and that it's good that all the men are gone because they cause problem. But, okay, so the men are gone now. So now what's your focus going to be? Because Roxanne doesn't seem to be like, all right, everything's good now. I'm interested to see how that's going to go next. Of course, the only thing that might be a problem is Roxanne going to hit the road because they got such a sweet deal there. It seems like
with all the food, right? Everybody else is starving.
They got all the food, they got the drugs, they got the baths. They got the electricity. Hell, she's flaunting the electricity when she goes out to confront those dudes. The doors slide open. She's like, I'm going to waste my electricity on these doors sliding open. That's how much juice I got.
No, that's the best juice.
There's people in the back riding the bicycles to get the...
Now let's talk about the one person who I'm like, this person should be, get me out of here all day long. And that is Sam. What is going on with Sam? Now Sam has... these scenes we already talked about with Hero. Sam is watching Sam sees the funeral, but before the funeral happens, he gets this visit up in his bunk from a member there named Kelsey. Kelsey is forward, I guess. How do you want to describe her? Is she hitting on Sam? She's very...
Well, she says most of these guys don't like men, but not me.
Right. And she's like, Sam, just get on the train. You'll be good. She's also doing a bit of a sales pitch for the area, isn't she?
She's doing a sales pitch, but her sales pitch isn't like, this is going to be great. Her sales pitch is like, just fake it until you make it. In fact, just keep faking it. And then, which she does again later on, when she goes up to him in a very ominous, nobody wants me to come near you. And so we have this thing I was just talking about. All the men are gone, so what's Roxanne going to focus on now? She's still focusing on people who are male-presenting, even as enemies. So, and then Kelsey, it's unfortunate when you say to someone, I'm not even supposed to be seen with you. And then someone goes, ahem. And Kelsey's like, ruh-roh.
Right. Kelsey will be saying a lot of rut-rows because it's tough to talk without teeth. She'll be saying, because that's how the episode ends.
They beat her down.
They beat her down. They do some price back stomping, and that is it. That is episode 6. Hello.
Wow. There's a lot going on here, Bubba. I'm just so sad that you have such a short attention span that it's not enough for you.
There's some boiling water. I want the whistle to blow. Let's go.
Well, it's already blown for Kelsey.
Right, yeah, it sure has. But Nora made the tea. I didn't hear the cat.
Nora, stop making tea.
All right, hey.
Yeah.
Catfish, that is episode 6. What do we want our listeners to do if they disagree with us?
Oh, we want them to hit us up at our Twitter handle, at @PHQ. That's the word double, the letter P, then the letter H, then the letter Q. It couldn't be simpler than that, at PHQ. Twitter, Instagram. If you're listening on YouTube, there's a little button there that says like. Hit that one. Mm-hmm. There's another button that calls subscribe. Oh, wow. Hit that one. If you see other buttons on the page, hit those after you hit those other two.
Right. Not the one that says block. not the one that says report this video. But
not that one. But leave us a comment underneath it. We love the fan interaction.
We do. All right, so we're going to end this episode the way we end every episode. We're going to give out a couple awards, and we're going to hear from our musical expert, Double M, Matt Murdick. But before we get his brilliant insight, Catfish, who is our Whoa Man of the episode?
Oh, Whoa Man of the episode. The most badass, awesome woman of this episode. I've given it to 355 3 times.
Yep.
To Dr. Mann once.
Yep.
Tonight, it goes to Regina Oliver.
What?
I couldn't disagree more with her politics, but she is so badass. She has taken names. She is handing out receipts. No one can stand in her way. She is the villainess we need, Bubba.
Ice cold. Okay, my woman of the episode.
Yes.
Really, sometimes you succeed by failing.
Oh.
And so General Reed is my woman of the episode. She got her troops to 355, and then they failed her. And so for her dedication to President Brown's agenda and sacrificing her troops for the greater good, General Reed is my woman of the episode.
Would you say her generals are the best? She's got the best generals.
I will. That's what everyone says. That's what they are. Now, Catfish, we also give an award named for Yorick. What's that?
It's called the Alas Yorick. I knew him. Sorta. It's how we are or are not like some of the actions that Yorick gave in this episode.
Well, I'll go first.
You go, Bubba.
I'll go first. In that, what did Yorick do in this episode? Probably his best moment in this episode to save 355's life. He woke her up when she was sleeping. I wake people up at night when they're sleeping with my snoring. So I am just like Yorick. Yorick, alas, I knew him, sorta.
Oh, man. Well, my last Yorick, I knew him sorta.
Yeah.
Moment of the night was, just like Yorick, I never leave a person behind unless I really don't trust them.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Listen,
or if it's just not convenient for me, or if I just am peckish, I leave a person behind.
I'll defend 355 until the first bullet fires. Later. Good work, Yorick.
All right, well, we've got one more bit, but before we do that, it's some people, and I don't get it. No, it's some people's favorite part of the episode, which is Double M, Matt Murdick's musical notes for this episode.
What's up, Matt?
So, last week, Bubba explained that my segment is your favorite segment that doesn't involve him and Catfish. In fact, it is the only segment. However, I'm going to break that rule because I'm going to include one of Bubba's comments to me in this segment. So technically, he will be part of this segment too. And that is the fact that he liked those rhythmic pulses, as he says, as 355 in York searched the Union Club for Dr. Mann. It was cool, and it exemplifies how Stefan Stoddard is using a lot of synth textures as well as some acoustic textures that resemble kind of the Western stuff. She's also using a lot of synth textures. And I can't exactly duplicate the synth sound that she was using because I don't know what synth she was using or what kind of parameters she was putting on it. But basically the sound that Bubba was talking about was this. Funny thing is that it not only occurred during the time that 355 and Yorick were looking for Mann at the Union Club, it also occurred when she went to, whatever the boss's house, and she ended up fighting with Agent 525. It reoccurred there as well. But one of the things that I found interesting about it, by just looking at what that bass line does, hey, let's call this a double B. A Bubba bass line, since he wanted to talk about it. And it's essentially just a bass line, a single line note. And it's got a little things dressed up on top of it. But what that bass line does is it outlines the chords for a theme that we already know. The one that we've heard associated sometimes with Hero, sometimes with Nora, sometimes with the event itself. Even in episode 5, as Dr. Mann was recalling the fact that they lost giraffes, blah, blah, blah. That particular theme. I talked about it last week and explained how that progression makes us feel. But listen to the bass notes of this theme, the lowest notes, and you can hear that they're the same as that synth bass line. Now, this double B, the Bubba bass line, is actually only used so far in cases with Agent 355. So does it really have anything to do with that theme about the event or about the character Nora or about the character Hero? Probably not. But what it does is it creates a little bit of continuity across the musical landscape by using chord progressions that are similar, even with totally different textures, even with totally different treatments. It gives a cohesion to all of the music in order to make it feel narratively connected. It puts it in the same world. And that's great. But why do this treatment of it rather than the treatment that we normally hear? Well, that's pretty easy. There's a lot of tension in these scenes with Agent 355 and Yorick, or Agent 355 and Agent 525. There's so much tension, you need some kind of extra little kick in it. And that's what that synth texture does. It has all these little clicks, these little pulses, as Bubba calls it. And that creates excitement. It's a rhythmic thing that gives you the sense of action and gives you the sense of tension. When we hear things moving fast, somewhere in our subconscious, our heart rate goes up a little bit too. It's a natural reaction. And those kinds of things always help to sell a scene where you simply have a bunch of people walking through a room. And on top of that, it really helps when you don't know whether Agent 355 is going to be able to beat Agent 525. I hope I'm getting that number right, by the way. I listened to TV Podcast Industry's coverage of episode 5 as well, and there were some comments in there about that particular piece of music. So I'm glad I was able to address Bubba's interest in it for this podcast too, because it does seem to have generated a lot of interest. What about this week? There was a theme that appeared in this week's episode that actually we'd heard before. This one. We heard that this week when the girl suddenly hit the other girl that had been caught talking to Sam. But where did we hear it before? We heard it in episode 3 when Kimberly was snooping around trying to figure out what Agent 355 was doing when Agent 355 was collecting the geneticist research material. Actually, in that episode, it was a little bouncier. It had a little bit of a guitar thing in it as well. This time around, it's just more the bare bones. Two very different situations, obviously, in terms of what it's being used for. So I'm not going to try and label it for anything, but we've heard it in more than one episode. In fact, it may have even been in another episode, if I recall right, but we've definitely heard it multiple times. So it's definitely going to be a recurring piece of music, and it's going to be treated differently. This one was treated a little less bouncy than the first time that we heard it. So we know that it's going to have implications in terms of adding emotion or not. It really has that kind of Western kind of melody sound to it. Again, kind of the Wild West out here where Hero and Sam are staying, and Nora and Mackenzie. One other thing I want to talk about just real quick. That was a fantastic cover of Karma Police by Radiohead. I don't know who arranged it. I don't know who performed it. I hope that Stefan Stoddard had something to do with that, because that seems kind of right up her alley. But, man, that was super cool. And that's all I've got. Back to Bubba and Catfish.
Once again, he shames us by saying smart things and not being silly. Double M Matt Murdick at Musical Concepts on Twitter.
How is he even on this podcast? Knowledgeable, not being a smartass. Where does he get off?
Exactly right.
All right, Bubba.
Yeah.
There is only one more award we're going to give this week.
Yeah.
And that is every week we come up with an answer. How did this happen? How did we lose 99.9999% of people with Y chromosomes, of beings with Y chromosomes? Where it's a suspect of the week. Bubba,
yes.
Who is your suspect of the week?
Well, I think the episode really reinforced who the real villain is.
Yeah.
Catfish.
Who is it?
Radiohead. And their lead singer, Thomas York, I think.
Thomas Yorick.
I think. And so everybody heard their emotionally moody music.
Yeah.
And there was one thing to do with moody music: men murder. And so they murdered.
It was moody music, men murdering.
Exactly right.
Oh,
it's the only thing that the episode taught us about why all these Y chromosome creatures died.
Oh, man.
That's it for this week. Oh, wait, Catfish, did you have a suspect that you think caused all the men to die this week?
You know what, Bubba?
Yeah.
I'm starting to think it was Roxanne.
Roxanne. What do you... Wait, what? Roxanne, the leader here of the Price Max?
I mean, she seems to have the capability. She has the capability.
Oh, yep.
She had the motive.
Oh, yeah.
She had the opportunity. Bubba?
Yes?
I'm starting to think it was Roxanne.
Let's put her on the suspect lineup. We're going to have them all up there. And at the end of the season, guys, we're going to pick the only suspect that could have caused this from all our people. We're going to have them all up in the police lineup.
All right.
We're going to allow you to help us pick the true criminal of this case.
Man, that is so good. Well, Bubba, holy cow. What do we have next week? This was episode 6. Next week, that means by logical inference, next week is episode 7.
That's right. Entitled, My Mother Saw a Monkey.
Oh, is that a euphemism as well?
A triple M, right. My mother monkey. All right. Kimberly uncovers a secret.
Uh-oh.
355 and Allison Mann reach an understanding.
Yeah, that Yorick is a moron.
They might understand that already. Yorick stumbles upon a mysterious town where things are not quite what they seem. Who's next week's episode written by, Cap?
Oh, written by Charlie Jane Anders, a great former editor at io9.com, which was a great fantasy and sci-fi website. It's essentially been gutted now. Also a writer.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. Also a writer of some great books, and it's directed by Lauren Wolkstein,
who directs episodes.
I'm sorry. I have a lot more connection to Charlie Jane Anders. I'm sorry, Laura. I didn't give you your big pub.
Okay, so for everybody here at Double P Media, my name's Bubba. You can find me on the Twitter area at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And my name is Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67, your 67th favorite CJG man. And we'll talk to you next week on
Z, the podcast you listen to after you've watched
Why the Last Man. So let's do a special one for Hamlet is Dead. Okay, Z, the podcast you listen to before you watch
Why the Last Man.
That's the special Hamlet is Dead promo.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. I thought I was going to say Roxanne and Regina Oliver walk into a bar. Call back.
And they see Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What?